that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody and welcome to something different, to the Hyperion Age, to Conan the Barbarian by Robert E. Howard, a series where we go through the classic stories by Robert E. Howard, along with, of course, also doing it's not going to be back to back to back, but I also do plan on doing a lot of old space opera like Lee Brackett and Edgar Rice Burroughs and the like in the future at some point. There's a whole lot of classic stuff alongside probably some H.P. Lovecraft and the like, so good stuff's all around. But the reason I even considered doing Conan, because Conan has never really interested me personally, was because in Malazan, Book of the Fallen, Book 4, House of Chains, there is a character that is inspired by Conan the Barbarian, but it's meant to be a more realistic approach to such a character. And Steven Erikson has a whole thing about that, that he did a little article about it. But it got me thinking, what's the actual stuff like? If I'm going to be reviewing a book, which is kind of going as like a kind of critique / adjustment to those old stories, shouldn't I know at least about a couple? So here we are to begin with The God in a Bowl by Robert E. Howard. It was first published in Space Science Fiction, 1952. Also, Lovecraft sent a letter or a note about this to Robert E. Howard saying how he enjoyed it. So that's something. But overall, just a really little story. We learn that for someone who's supposed to be big and bad and fighting, I learned that Conan is a thief, which I didn't know about. He'd been hired to go do something, to steal something, and he was going to do it. Keeps his word. And the whole gist of the story is that there's a guard at this place, and he comes upon a dead body with Conan beside him. So, it's this whole murder mystery. We're pretty much sure that Conan didn't do it, but it's part of the thing of figuring out what happened, and that's about that. I'm also trying to go in chronological order, because I don't think it really matters how you do it, but if it doesn't matter, then I want to do it in chronological order, or as best as they can. There's debate amongst that, because there's no set thing. Robert E. Howard never made I think he did, but I don't know. There's debate, as far as I know, there's a debate amongst where everything is placed. But we know that, at the very least, that Conan is supposed to be younger here because they call him younger, or they call him like a young guy here. So there's that. But yeah, it was fine. It was nothing incredible. It was more of a short story, I guess, than a full-on novel, at least from what it felt like. But maybe it was. Novels can be pretty short. But it was overall fine. Nothing. Obviously, I don't think this is the first story to come out for Conan, so this wouldn't have been what got people excited for Conan. But going in, I'm intrigued. Conan is an interesting character from what I've seen so far. He's more in the background in this story because it's more. Because he's definitely there with the intent to steal. Is that morally acceptable? To him, it is. And he's willing to fight and kill all these people. But, he also gets offended when they claim that he's a liar. And he says he always keeps his word. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there with Conan already. And I'm interested to see where that might lead in the future. And I just think it'd be interesting to have this in contrast to Malazan, since I'm going to be reading that too. But yeah, non-spoiler wise, it's a decent little read. And you don't got to pay a dime for it. If you look the story up on the interwebs, that hasn't been said in a long time, you'll find a website which has a lot of Robert E. Howard's works for free, because it's public domain, I think. I have a collection for 99 cents, but the fish. The god in a bowl was not included in that collection, so. But it's pretty easily accessible. You can find it pretty easily online. If not, there's probably like a bajillion audiobooks fan made on YouTube already of that story. But yeah, I mean, there's science fiction, there's fantasy, and there's sword and sorcery, and this is one of the pivotal things that came out back in the day that was part of the pulps, even if it wasn't for sci-fi necessarily, even though apparently it came out in a sci-fi magazine. It still is in that sort of era of like the Lovecrafts and Edgar Rice Burroughs and the like. It's sort of around the same time frame, or so there's a lot of historical beneficial things to doing it like that, to reading these stories. They may be old, but there's still wisdom to be gained from it. And I mean, we read books like Odysseus in English class in high school, and that's less relevant today than now, one could argue, but I could also argue it's super relevant now, but I think it's good to preserve history, especially because people my age definitely are more in the time of TV shows, movies, video games, not so much on the novel aspect. So if I can help keep that alive just a little bit longer, and give credit where credit is due to a lot of stuff, because if you look back on these old pulps, from this to a lot of stuff that Joe Bongiorno talked about on my stream with him, you take it back, like a lot of this stuff. I mean, my stream is mostly about space opera, the history of that and how it eventually influenced Star Wars. But you look at a whole bunch of media throughout this time period, and you eventually get what we have now. A lot of different things we have now, entertainment-wise, has some part to do with these stories. So it's good to remember them. But that's it for non-spoiler. I don't have that much to say spoiler-wise, but if you don't want any spoilers, if you are curious about this story that you can read for free, then go do so. We learn, they casually make mentions of names, so, because, like, the guy, Eris, the guy that's, like, the guard of this place, he says, oh, this man, when he's, like, looking at Conan, is definitely not Nemedian, whatever that means, but that's clearly, like, a race or a people. He guesses that maybe he's Hyperion, or Bessonian, which Conan is neither of these things, but again, that's already opening up the world in of itself. I know this is not the first story publication-wise, but still, you have these names mentioned, so if you were reading in chronological order, like, ooh, what's all that mean? But we do eventually learn that Conan is, in fact, a Cimmerian. I do like that Conan is honest, but yet he's a thief. And then there's a mention of Thoth Amon, Stygian, another thing, sorcerer, which I imagine is somebody who will pop up in a future story, and it was this nice little reference to that. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's nothing to write home about necessarily, but it's also my fault for reading in chronological order, or somebody's chronological order. And I'm sure there'll be more in-depth stories that people fell in love with Conan with. This was probably not one of them, but it was an interesting start, I have to say. So, absolutely. Sorry, I saw a spider in my room. Now I have to scream. But overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's worth your time. Anyway, till next time, guys. Let Conan do what he wants to do, or he may not have a head. And I prefer to speak to you with all of your body parts intact. Sorry. Till next time, guys. See ya.